The next few poses will be done in a standing position. Please move slowly and at your own pace. Keep the sturdy chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips-width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide, and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. Push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up back and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movements smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side. Return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side. and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
Welcome back to the 19th online episode of Peacetime, hosted on alternating Sunday mornings and Thursday evenings by PeacePoint, with myself, Prat Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhammakaya International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Today's session will be about an hour and 10 minutes long and will consist of a 25-minute talk, 20 minutes of meditation, finishing up with 25 minutes of conclusion, viewer questions, and news updates. Last time you saw me, we looked at Give Forgiveness, Get Peace. The topic for the Dhamma talk today will be nipping anger in the bud. Again, this session I would encourage you to send in any questions you have by emailing me at peacetime.questions@gmail.com so that I can have a shot at answering them next time round. Anger provides one of the clearest examples of the way impurities in the mind can behave like suffering from a disease. Because when a person is overcome by anger, they are not themselves. It's as if they've been possessed by something which takes control of them. If you think back to when we compared the defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion in a previous session, we said that anger is something which is very damaging, as impurities in the mind go, but at the same time it is short-lived. It's very damaging because when you're under the control of it, there are so many things which you can do which could get you put behind bars. It is said to be short-lived because as soon as you get over it, you can't believe all the damage you've caused. It's like you were another person during the time when you were angry. So anger is considered a short-term but very damaging impurity. The sort of symptoms that happen to angry people, and if you're curious, you can try looking in the mirror next time you're angry, are a lot of physical changes to your body. Anger makes you have a red face. Sometimes it can cause you to shake. Sometimes it can even cause you to go white in the face. Although you may be a person of above average intelligence, when you're angry you can't think properly. You can't say the things you want to say, and you tend to be unable to find the right solution to problems. Anger means wanting to destroy or say harmful things to others when they conflict with us. Anger starts with ill intentions towards other people, which, if left uncontrolled, can worsen to the point of vengefulness, equivalent to a wildfire in the mind. Basically, it is possible to be angry with two things, ourselves and others. If we are angry with ourselves, the most self-destructive outcome can be suicide. But if we are angry with others, it can lead to violence and grievous bodily harm. So apart from the obvious run-ins with the law, what is the downside of anger? Well, the first thing is that it can shorten people's lives. Some people get so angry that they have a heart attack. This is a physical reason which is a reaction to the angry emotions. Secondly, you lose a lot of credibility. If you lose your cool, especially in public, then people no longer feel they can rely on you, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, where no one openly expresses their emotions like they might do in Italy or Brazil, for example. If you were a politician who had an uncontrollable temper, then you would go settling personal scores, and in the end there would be a putsch to bring you down. On the contrary, if you train yourself not to take matters personally and to control your emotional responses, then you will manage to make the best use of the influence you have. A third thing is that anger makes you tone deaf to subtler emotions, because if you can harbor violent emotions like anger, then you tend to lose sensitivity to other people's feelings, especially if you would rather be angry with them than try to work out a solution together. Outbursts of anger can actually trash your personality, because every time you wish for the demise of other people, you have to picture such destruction in your mind first of all. Such pictures of destruction will gradually collect up in your mind until it becomes hard for you to see the world with any optimism. A fourth disadvantage of anger is that it can interrupt your ability to concentrate. Going back to 1960, when Nikita Khrushchev was the premier of the Soviet Union, he attended a meeting of the United Nations in person. As the meeting progressed, the Filipino envoy accused him of undermining political and civil rights in Eastern Europe. Khrushchev didn't know how to dodge the accusation, so he took off a shoe and banged it on the conference podium. Everyone was so angry about him using his shoe to hammer the table that they all forgot where they had got to in the negotiation. Apart from Khrushchev being removed from office shortly afterwards for his angry outburst, the Filipino envoy was so angry he also forgot what he was saying, so the Soviet Union got let off the hook. The fifth disadvantage of anger is the way it can upset your sleep. As an angry person, even if you are lucky enough to get to sleep, you will spend your time dreaming up all the bad things you will do to your enemy next time you see them. Even the Buddha is known to have said that only those who can overcome their anger will get a good night's sleep. Lastly, people who are good-tempered tend to have a radiant complexion. By the opposite token, those who are moody and whose faces are always in a frown will end up losing their glowing appearance. In fact, everyone gets angry at some time. The difference is in how quickly you can recover from it. Otherwise, anger can turn your heart to stone. In a teaching called the Lekha Sutta of the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said that the mind of a person who harbors grudges can be compared to a stone surface, because anything that scratches stone will leave marks that endure for eternity. By contrast, a person who is angry often, but whose anger is short-lived, is compared to a line drawn in sand, which is quickly erased by wind and water, and doesn't last long. Lastly, the mind of those who are quick to forgive others is like water, because even though a trail is left in water by those who pass, at this point you might think of a water ski trail, before long the water returns to its old flat self. So the Buddha's advice is that you can save yourself suffering if you are quick to shake off any negative emotions. You will have a much longer and happier life. So, if you get angry, to quote Bruce Lee, be like water. Speaking of water, it's said that if monks find themselves getting angry, they should try to catch themselves at the point where they start to get irritable and go to drink a glass of cold water instead. That should be the end of it. Any anger that lasts longer than it takes to drink a glass of cold water has generally gone beyond the stage of irritation and beyond the boundaries of monastic decorum, because it's not good for monks to be angry. In fact, it's not good for anyone to be angry, but it's especially unsuitable for monks. Anger has been the subject of a lot of scientific theories. Going back to the research of Zaizhansky and Rosenman of 1971, you would hear things like type A people and type B people, where type A people can't afford to get angry because they have heart attacks and so on. But in recent years, this sort of research has been pretty much superseded by research showing that it doesn't matter what type of person you are, but the damage is determined by how people respond to their anger. Whether anger is expressed or not is less important than whether it is chronic. An occasional display of hostility is not dangerous to health. The problem arises when hostility becomes so constant as to become who you are, where you have repeated feelings of mistrust and cynicism, and a propensity to snide comments and put-downs, as well as more obvious bouts of anger and rage. Going back to 1972, Maddow propose the idea that if you vented your anger, then it would make you feel better, and it would help you to cope with the anger. So in the old days, if you were angry, then they would recommend that you shout or stamp your foot to get the negativity out of your system. But more recent research, such as Malik and McCandless or that of Tice, has shown that for the sort of people who vent their anger, actually it becomes like a rehearsal, leading them to become angry more easily in the future. If a person is in a situation where they have to cope with their anger in a peaceful way, then generally that sort of anger won't come back anymore. Outbursts of rage typically pump up the emotional brain's arousal, leaving people feeling more angry, not less. When angry people take their rage out on the person who provoked it, the net effect was to prolong the temper tantrum rather than end it. Far more effective was when people first cooled down and then, in a more constructive or assertive manner, confronted the person to settle their dispute. So, where do you think anger starts? Did you ever notice how anger begins? It starts with an intention in the mind for sure. But how would you notice that you're starting to get angry? Perhaps the feeling of irritability? And do you think you could stop yourself if you were just irritable? A pot of boiling water is a good metaphor for thinking about anger. The start of anger is like when you put the kettle on and it starts to make fizzing and sizzling noises. Just as a kettle doesn't immediately jump to a rolling boil, anger doesn't start out in a full-blown rage. We can see with the subtle defilements of anger, which you can see here in the pale yellow, where anger is mixed up merely with aversion or distraction by choices. This is the first level of anger, and is called dislike. It is equivalent to the water in the kettle starting to fizz. Really, such aversion is just the flip side of wanting. There is a sort of escalation in the feeling of anger, and it starts again when you have an unrequited preference for something. Often, if you prefer something and you don't get what you want, then you feel some sort of resentment. If you notice such feelings in yourself, then you can be assured that your mind is still under the sway of subtle defilements of anger in the mind. More serious than dislike and relatively more damaging are the medium defilements. You can see them here in the dark yellow, where the anger is mixed up with unwholesome mentality or awareness of one's own anger. Once it develops to an irritable feeling, then it does become a little bit harder to overcome that, to reverse the feelings of anger. When a mother wants to sit for meditation and her daughter has the volume turned up loud, she might say, "Can't you turn down the volume? I would like to meditate now." And when her daughter replies, "Why does it have to be now that you meditate?" Although the mother is not exactly angry, she would be annoyed by her daughter's lack of cooperation. You have to overcome irritability because it has the chance of developing into something worse. The third level of anger is called annoyance. This is the stage where we actually start becoming aware of the fact that we are angry. It is equivalent to the water in the kettle starting to bubble up. So, if you have an awareness of it, then with the awareness comes a choice about whether you're going to let the anger continue or whether you're going to make sure it stops there. And often the sort of argument that goes on in your head is whether you're justified in being angry or not, whether being angry is actually going to help the situation or not. For example, if the server assistant is not taking something you've requested seriously, you might think that if you're angry, then maybe they would comply with your request more quickly. You have thoughts like that going through your head. So you become aware of your anger. At that point, you have a choice whether to go further or draw a line under it. And if you're truly in control and you don't want to become angry, then that is the point where you can say enough is enough. But once you let it go beyond that stage, then you will get what's known as directed anger or ill will. If you go back to the metaphor of the kettle, directed anger is where the water starts splashing out and scalding the people in the near vicinity. Instead of happening not to like someone, we forego the kindly wishes and we cannot help hoping they will meet a sticky end. Then we come to the gross level of defilements, and you can see them here in the brown color, where anger is mixed up with a loss of forgiveness and mercy. This fifth level of anger is known as grudge or spite, and then it becomes something which goes beyond anger in hot blood, so that you feel angry even when your blood has cooled down. It gets to the point where, when you've been angry with someone, you won't let it go. Every time you see that person, the anger is triggered again. So this is the sort of anger which can last overnight. The thing which you were angry about yesterday is triggered all over again, and you go back to having the same feeling of anger as before. This is where it really does become something which is going to affect your health. Having a grudge or spite for someone is like keeping someone prisoner in your mind, who you have locked up and then thrown away the key. So, though you can no longer remember why you were angry with someone, you still feel angry with them anyway. Sometimes they've made some trivial error long ago, but you make sure you never forget it, in spite of being quick to forget the hundreds of good things that they've done for you. You never think to harm that person, but you harbor a dislike for them. You cannot stand the sight of a person, and you're angered even to hear their name. If you still harbor such grudges, then there's nothing cheerful in the world. You find yourself constantly surrounded by imaginary enemies. The sixth and final escalation of anger is called vengefulness, where, no matter what, you're going to get your own back on that person for the thing which has made you so angry with them. This is anger or the wish to destroy others that is so strong that if you don't succeed in destroying someone today, you'll make sure you succeed on a future occasion. So this is the way anger escalates, if we let it do so. Of course, nobody would welcome the gross defilements of anger. But even anything up to the level of annoyance is really quite bad news for anyone who's under the effects of it. For people in general, control of anger that keeps you on the right side of the law is adequate. But for meditators, we should try to overcome anger even on the level of ill will. I'm sure most of you listening in are not extremely angry people. Meditation can certainly help a lot. In my younger days, I was quite temperamental as a person, but somewhere along the line with meditation, that tendency to anger sort of fizzled out. I don't know where, but it sort of comes as part and parcel of meditation progress. You don't take provocation so seriously that you're going to lose sleep over it anymore. Other ways of dealing with it? Well, luckily there are ways, and for convenience I've divided these into 4 types. Firstly, academic strategies. Secondly, advice for when you are completely in the clutches of anger. Thirdly, advice for when you are still in control of your temper. And lastly, advice for working to uproot residual anger in your character. So before our meditation, let's start by looking at a couple of academic strategies against anger. After meditation, we can look at some of the more practical strategies available. The academic strategies I'm going to describe have been developed in recent years as an antidote to the anger manifested by young people in the hoods, where teachers need to make sure violent outbursts don't destroy everyone's chance at education. Otherwise, school students are never in a good enough mood to actually learn anything. Both strategies I'm going to describe help angry people to challenge the automatic thoughts that come as a result of anger, and to encourage them to look for alternative solutions, instead of just accepting the first idea that comes into their head, which is a tendency we all have when we're angry and cannot think straight. Of course, The success of the strategies depends on you still having some degree of control when you get mad. The first strategy, which has quite a memorable name, is known as SOX. And the idea of SOX is that, generally speaking, when a person is angry, they will go with whatever knee-jerk reaction first pops into their head, and they won't examine any alternatives. So we have SOX, which is spelled S-O-C-S. So if a person sees something which makes them angry, whatever comes in their mind as a way to deal with this problem, they will tend to go with that, even though there may be 4 or 5 better options. For example, if a guy is in a schoolyard and he sees another guy speaking to his girlfriend, instead of thinking about innocent reasons why that guy might be wanting to speak to his girlfriend, like maybe they're in the same class and they are trading tips on homework, he immediately assumes he's got competition, so he goes to hit the guy. There could be many innocent explanations for the conversation, but the first thing that comes into his mind causes him to lose his temper and express violence. So this SOX strategy is a way educators came up with to try to deal with this sort of problems. Firstly, if someone pushes your buttons, so you're not yet properly angry, but you still have your wits about you, you need to S, which means say what the situation is and how it makes you feel. If you can stand back from the emotion, then immediately you have a little bit more control over the situation. Then you come to the O. Think of what options may present themselves, which could be ways to deal with this situation or deal with the emotions you're feeling in response to the situation. So don't just think of one option, but maybe think of 4 or 5 possible alternatives, which could help you deal with the situation. Then you come to the C, which is think through the possible consequences of each one of the options you've thought of. From the consequences, you can choose the one which is likely to be the best one to go with, and then you pick that. The second S, which stands for solution, is that you put it into practice, and it will help you deal with things in a rational way, rather than giving in and surrendering to your emotions. Another variant strategy aimed primarily at secondary school kids is known as the stoplight solution to anger. First, when you're angry, stop, so red light first, and then you come to the yellow light, which is to say how the problem makes you feel. Third is that you set a positive goal. Fourthly, think of lots of solutions. And 5, think of the consequences. So there are a few more steps there than for the SOX strategy, and you move on to the green light, which is go ahead and apply your plan. The stoplight notion is regularly invoked when a child, for example, is about to strike out in anger or get moody about perceived injustice or burst into tears when they're teased. It offers a concrete set of steps for dealing with those loaded moments in a more proportionate way. Beyond the management of feelings, it points a way to a more effective action or reaction to a situation, and as a habitual way of handling the unruly emotional impulse to act out before thinking. It can evolve into a basic strategy for dealing with the turbulent waters of adolescence and beyond. So no matter how great these academic solutions for anger may sound, they cannot beat working directly with the mind to get to the root causes of the anger inside us. Therefore, at this time, we take the opportunity to settle ourselves for some meditation. And if you'd like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now as you listen to my guidance. Was light in weight. And so we start by settling ourselves down into a comfortable posture for meditation, closing our eyes as gently as possible. We allow our breath to become slow and deep, and make a check of the whole of our body to be sure each and every muscle is properly relaxed, all the way from the top of our head, right the way down to the tips of our toes, with nowhere in between harboring any stress or tension anymore. So the whole body feels light in weight. And turning our attention inwards, we focus on the inner state of mind, which again can be relaxed further if we're able to let go for a few moments of all the possible worries or concerns, gathering our attention back from any possible distractions in the outside world to a place of serenity on the inside, re-engaging with a sense of joy and happiness there, and allowing the same feeling to spread throughout our body and mind. Inside our body, we imagine it's just an empty space, or as if our whole body has been transformed into a sort of bubble with nothing inside. Or equally as if our body has disappeared completely, leaving a great empty space. But we'll allow our mind to reconnect with that special place inside us, which feels like the point of greatest contentment, somewhere around the area of our diaphragm, and maintaining our attention there as continuously as we can for as long as we can, not letting our attention slip away to anything else. If you already have an inner object of some sort, you can adopt that as the focus for your meditation. If you don't seem to have anything obvious to focus upon, you can always start by conjuring up one of your own. A visual object or one that you can feel inside you. If your attention wanders away to other things, you simply bring it back again as soon as you realize. And bring it back repeatedly until little by little, keeping the mind centered becomes second nature to us. Remaining always at the center of whatever we can perceive inside us, not as if we were looking down on that point, but as if we were actually there ourselves. So if we have shifted the whole of our mental office down from the level of our brain to that place at the center of our stomach, with all perception, memory, thought, or cognition in the same place at our center, actually within the object that we perceive. If thoughts return, we do our best to ignore them, to let them die down, to leave a sense of silence in the mind. Silence in which there is nothing but our inner object as the total focus for our attention. If we rest our mind gently, continuously, there'll be a sense in which it's almost like threading a needle. So an extreme lightness of touch can allow the mind to reach through into the other side. If we can achieve this level of finesse, we will start to see the center of the body as much more than just being a point in the mind. It's actually like the trailhead for a pathway that leads the mind deeper. So we cultivate our attention in this way, lightly and gently, keeping our mind on track by means of our inner object, discouraging any thoughts from arising in the mind, and touching gently at the center of our inner experience, while allowing the mind to go deeper for a few more moments in silence. So we continue to keep our mind on track at the center of the body the whole of the time. Lightly, gently, and continuously. Always at the center of whatever inner experience we've built up for ourselves as a result of our meditation so far this session. For some people, the inner experience will amount to a sense of brightness at the center of oneself. For others, it may be more of a feeling, something like a sense of well-being, again centered at the seventh base. For others still, it may be images, large or small, centered around the middle of our body, sometimes small like objects, sometimes much larger like whole vistas or panoramas, where we are actually smaller than the images we see. But whatever inner experience we have, we touch our mind gently at our center, so gently that it's almost as if we're hardly touching at all. touching with the lightness of a warm fingertip, touching the surface of some new fallen snow, touching the snow so gently that there'll be a melting away at the point of contact, where solid becomes liquid and liquid becomes vapor, spreading outwards, rarefying outwards and spreading like the ripples on the surface of a pond, ever wider from the point of contact. In this way, we extend our inner experience initially to the whole of ourselves, filling ourselves with the light or that sense of well-being, or expanding the inner picture to fill the whole of our body by a process known as the spreading of loving kindness. And we make the affirmation at the center of ourselves that may I be well and happy, free from all suffering. And then we extend the same loving kindness beyond the boundaries of our own being, outwards into the room around us, extending outwards in all directions around us like a halo or an aura, to encapsulate all the sentient beings around us in the room where we're sitting for meditation. And we start to return some of the benefits of meditation to the world around us by making the affirmation at the center of ourselves that all the living beings here in this room be well and happy, free from suffering, and live together in peace and harmony. Further outwards to the whole building, wider to the whole neighborhood, outwards to the whole municipality and the city limits, almost as if we are extending our loving kindness across a map, seen in bird's eye view, in ever-widening circles around us, taking in all the sentient beings therein, with the wish that may all these beings be well and happy, live in peace and harmony. Especially at this time when so many people feel isolated or pinned down by negativity, we extend our loving kindness as a torrent of peace, a cool tide extending outwards to bring happiness where there is suffering, and increasing the happiness where happiness is scarce. Even wider to the whole state of California, to neighboring states, to all the lower 48 states, wider still to the whole of North America, with the wish that all living beings here on this continent be well and happy, free from suffering, live together in peace and harmony. And wider still to all the continents of the world, as if we were extending loving kindness across the entire face of this planet, with the affirmation at the center of ourselves that may all living beings, whether on the land, in the air, or in the sea, be touched by our loving kindness, that these living beings be well and happy, free from suffering, live together in peace and harmony, that world peace become a reality within our own lifetimes. And we can spread loving kindness in all the 6 great directions, almost as if we were extending a beam of loving kindness outwards into the universe around us, to the front and to the back, without limits. To the right and to the left, without boundaries. Above and below, without end. Extending loving kindness to all living beings here in the universe, so that no living being, without exception, is left untouched by our loving kindness. Again, with the same wish for all living beings to be well and happy, free from suffering, live together in peace and harmony. And for the last few moments of our practice, we can extend a loving kindness toward particular loved ones we may be thinking about, by holding them close within the brightness or our sense of well-being at the center of ourselves. Thinking of their name or their face, sending loving kindness to them in particular, especially if we are separated by huge distances. Extending loving kindness to those for whom we feel a particular debt of gratitude, toward those still living, or even those who have already passed, trusting that the purity of our loving kindness can extend across the huge gulfs of space and time to reach those loved ones wherever they are to be found. We extend our loving kindness in this way for the last few moments of our practice together. Sappa Buddhanupavena, Sappa Dhammanupavena, Sappa Sankhanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, and slowly try changing to a more comfortable position for gently finishing your practice. So now that we are calm from our practice of meditation and loving kindness, we can more effectively return to our question this session of finding ways to use meditation to nip anger in the bud. The academic solutions I introduced before meditation might work out fine and dandy if you are still mindful enough of your temper to practice impulse control. But what if you're already beyond the point of no return? If you cannot keep up your anger, you only have a couple of dignified choices. The first alternative, if you are in the clutches of anger, is to find a way to bring your mind back to the center of the body. Supposing you're walking along and you stub your toe on a step. When you're angry, your mind will go to the step. If you can bring the mind back to the center of the body again, then the anger soon disappears. The sooner you can bring your mind back, the sooner you will recover from your anger. If you're slow in bringing your mind back, before long your thoughts will elaborate into who's to blame and how to get your revenge. If you find you cannot bring your mind back to the center of the body by visualization, then try repeating Samma Arahang, that's our mantra, under your breath, or failing that, breathe deeply and count to 10. If all the above fails and you still find you are on the way to a meltdown, the second alternative is to try to back down amicably from the situation. Try to regain your sense of awareness rather than plunging on and making a fool of yourself. In Asia, people tend to withdraw from a situation which causes potential anger and then come back later to deal with it when they are in a better frame of mind. In Asia, it's not seen as cowardice or as a loss of face. In the West, there's also a taboo that anger looks bad, and although outbursts of anger seem to be acceptable in some political circles these days, I don't recommend that course of action. Next, we come to annoying situations where you can keep control. If you can keep up with your anger and make some course corrections before the symptoms become too serious, you may have many more dignified choices available to you than if you have already gone ballistic. Supposing you are really angry and you already missed the point of choice at the irritability stage, the best thing you can do is don't say anything. As one writer, Lawrence J. Peter, once put it, speak when you're angry and you'll make the best speech you'll ever regret. So don't write anything. Don't write emails, don't troll, don't write hate letters unless you want to tear them up or burn them before sending them. Especially if you put things in writing when you're angry, well, that it will serve very well as evidence of ill intention when you are brought up in court. Secondly, if you are still in control of your temper, you should make sure you never get violent. When trying to solve a problem, even though you might think yourself at an advantage because of weapons or numbers, do not attack your opponent. Violence only adds to the problem, and the ugly repercussions may go on for years to come. One reason that it might be useful to listen to your anger is that the anger may be trying to alert you to insecurities which you may have. For such insecurities, you need to respond to what your anger is telling you, not just react to it. For example, that feeling of anger might be telling you that where you need to draw your boundaries in order to protect yourself better. It may be that you need to feel safe, cared about, or respected. As a result, to protect that safety and respect, you might need to carefully assert boundaries such as, I won't be with you if you're drinking. I won't spend time with you if you become demeaning or if you raise your voice. So, listening to anger without reacting to it can be something positive that comes out of this normally negative emotion. Supposing you are habitually a bad-tempered person. Is there something you can do in the meantime before you get angry to help you stop getting angry in the first place? Well, there are some things which you can do which will help you lengthen your fuse. One of the things which is very successful and closely related to meditation is developing a quality known as loving kindness. I'm sure you've heard about loving kindness before, metta or maitri in Buddhist terminology, Basically, it's the emotion of being able to forgive people. But to be able to forgive people, you have to start out with a certain degree of softness and workability of mind. Otherwise, the sense of forgiveness cannot flow. So you must have some softness of heart, softness in your mind, to allow you to accommodate other people's feelings, even when they are making you angry. If you are able to forgive a person, then it is like letting go of the rope in the middle of a tug of war. The contest is basically over. So if one side is able to forgive the other, then that is usually the end of the argument, because it takes two to make a fight. Generally speaking, if you meditate and you have gained some sort of inner experience as a result, it may be brightness or it may be a feeling of well-being inside. If you develop that into loving kindness, then you're able to spread that inner experience for the benefit not just of yourself, but also for the benefit of the people around you. So you'd be able to spread that brightness or feeling of well-being beyond yourself for the benefit of others. Some people find that if meditation is going well, the spreading of loving kindness happens automatically. But as your capacity for loving kindness grows stronger, you'll be able to spread such a feeling even for people who you don't like. So you would have the same feeling of compassion and forgiveness for people whether you like them or not. You wouldn't feel any animosity towards them. Supposing meditation doesn't work for you, are there other ways you can reduce the tendency to anger? Well, going back to this problem of anger lasting overnight, has anyone ever had that? Waking up in the morning and you're still angry about whatever made you angry the day before? It's generally a bad sign. Usually it means that your quality of mind is pretty shaken up. In the olden days in Thailand, if you were angry at night, just before going to bed, you would take a whole lot of jasmine flowers and put them in a bowl of water on your nightstand. Then, when you wake up in the morning, you take a washcloth and you put it into this mixture of basically perfumed water, and you can apply it to your face to give you a nice, refreshing start to the day. Maybe these days you can use a wet wipe instead. In any case, it ensures that you don't get stuck in the same groove of anger that you've had the day before. So if you don't know what to do about the anger, which stays with you overnight, you might like to try that. Basically, it means giving yourself a new start to the day. Your bad-temperedness will gradually recede day by day. Alternatively, you can take up a hobby that requires patience. This is another way of dealing with anger. For example, it may be quite a challenge for an angry person to work on embroidery. In their impatience, they'd probably end up sticking the needle into their finger many more times than they stick it into the cloth. There are a lot of handicrafts in Thailand which require that same sort of care. For example, sewing banana leaves together in various shapes to make containers or decorations. Anyone who can do that will have to have a really calm mind. If they don't have a calm mind at the beginning of the task, then by the end of the task they certainly will, because the nature of the task demands of them that they slow down and take things carefully, step by step, until eventually they can complete the work. If they get mad, then the handiwork comes out a real mess. So taking up crafts like embroidery rather than taking up karate or kickboxing is generally a good move if you are an angry sort of person. Otherwise, the fighting reflexes will start to show themselves almost instinctively. If you are in an irritable time of your life, you should try playing ping pong or chess instead. And a final piece of advice is that you could try not associating with people who are angry like you, because anger tends to be contagious. This advice also applies to associating with people of the kind who harbor grudges. So I think there's time for a quick story, and today I'd like to tell the cautionary tale of the prickly porcupine. Here's how it begins. It was the coldest winter ever. Many animals died because of the cold. The porcupines, realizing the situation, decided to group up together. This way they covered and protected themselves, but the quills of each one wounded their closest companions, even though they shared their heat with one another. After a while, they decided to distance themselves one from the other to stop being wounded. As they did this, they became cold and they ended up dying alone or freezing to death. So they had to make a choice, either accept the quills of their companions or go extinct. Wisely, they decided to go back to being together. This way, they learned to live with little wounds that were caused by the close relationship with their companions. But the most important part of it was the heat that came from the others enabled them to survive the coldest winter yet. So the moral of the story is that we must accept as a given that living with others in an imperfect society may evoke anger at any time. But how we respond to the anger in ourselves or in others is something we have a choice about. If porcupines can do it, then as evolved human beings, we need to engage our unique capacity to collaborate and cooperate with each other to make it work out. With our capacity for empathy and the quality of compassion, we need to do everything we can to minimize suffering, and this means not letting the anger take over and possess us at any time, whether it be by lashing out or mentally cycling through a constant loop of resentment. So anger can be incredibly destructive when we get hijacked and it takes over. The conclusion of all I've talked about today is that rather than denying or repressing our anger, what we are looking for are ways to transform any angry feelings we have into something more positive. By becoming familiar with the way anger gradually escalates, we can learn to catch the anger and nip it in the bud before it reaches the point of no return. As meditators, we are well positioned to apply what we know to transform the energy of anger into something better. We become increasingly able to deepen our sense of self-possession instead of blaming others. If you find yourself in the clutches of anger, try to pause and recenter yourself before anger gets to the point of no return. Go into the center of your body using the mantra Samarahang, or simply taking a deep breath and count to 10 while waiting for the anger to pass. In order not to repress anger, accept that it is okay to feel angry. It happens to the best of people, but the key thing is not to let the anger last. For monks, I said anger shouldn't exceed the length of time it takes to drink a glass of water, but for everyone else, I would advise not letting the anger last overnight. It's bad enough to be angry all day. Don't let it last all day and all night as well. Also, respond to the anger rather than just reacting to it. Listening to the anger may help you identify a personal insecurity that you had not previously noticed. Once you start investigating, you may find the reason for the anger. So, listening to anger without reacting to it is a positive way forward. Lastly, don't organize your identity around your anger because it will cause a sense of blame and resentment which will bring you suffering. The suffering of being cut off from the wholeness of your being, from your wisdom, from your heart, and from everybody else in the world. So we turn now to answer the questions sent in by viewers. And this week the question comes from Richie of Woking, in the UK. Here comes the question. You advise not to associate with angry people, but what should I do if my work boss is angry by nature? Hi Richie, and thanks for your question, which fits well with the topic of today's talk. Unfortunately, it's not just your boss, but many people who get angry whether provoked by their employees or not. In fact, it is an insecure person who gets angry easily. It's the sort of person who gets angry when they stub their toe on a step. They can't blame anyone but themselves for kicking the step, but it doesn't stop them getting mad. If anyone does something to annoy them, they feel they have to express their anger in order to show their authority. That's what they think, or else next time their whole workforce will slide into insubordination. It is a weak person who loses their temper easily. Even if someone offers them advice with the best of possible intentions, such a person will turn around with a scowl and retort, "You've been constantly picking on my faults." Sometimes if you tell them they are bad tempers, it makes them even angrier. If you smile at them, such a person will interpret your smile as provocation. Even just speaking to such a person can make them lose their temper. Sometimes you don't even need to say anything. Just seeing you look at them can upset them. It's what's known as having a thin skin. You can think of an angry person as being like a person covered in open wounds. Anything that touches them will cause them pain and set off an angry reaction. If your employment contract requires that you are close to such a boss on a daily basis, you need to be careful about your boundaries. I know that in a working environment, sometimes we don't have a whole lot of choice about the place we work, but you do need to distance yourself, if not physically, then psychologically, from the people who would like to infect you with anger. Sometimes you can do that by limiting the amount of interaction you have with them. Okay, you can exchange pleasantries with them, but maybe you wouldn't want to lend them money. Maybe you wouldn't want to get too cozy with them in ways that are bound to bring up an angry reaction in the future. The best thing of all is to keep your contact with them to a bare minimum. So let me finish up with a quick mention about temple support and a news update about the availability of meditation teaching in English. At the moment, with extra strict stay-at-home orders statewide in California, anyone wanting to make a contribution to the temple in person should contact the temple first. If you'd like to bring food to the temple during this period, all you need to do is phone up Crystal first on 626-991-6958, and a monk in PPE will come to receive the offering and give a short blessing at the temple gate. As for temple donations, you can see the details on the ticker tape for those wishing to support the temple without attending in person. Needless to say, the whole temple would like to rejoice in the merits of all taking the opportunity to support the temple in this way. Meditation is particularly valid in this COVID era to help us cope with the extended lockdown. In this respect, here at the temple, although there are still no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim, you can access Dharma teachings in English at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation, either live on Thursday evenings and Sunday mornings, or on demand after the event. For those of you who have been following my talks, you may be interested to subscribe to a YouTube channel which I've recently set up in my own name, which can be found by searching for Prat Nicholas Thanissaro on YouTube, where I've uploaded more than 100 clips of meditations, Dharma talks, funeral talks, talks for children, and so forth. Meanwhile, Peace Breaks from Peace Point are broadcast every evening between 7 and 8 p.m. from Friday to Wednesday. For the benefits of families listening in, there's also a special show for children in English known as Shining Stars that goes out between 7:30 and 8 p.m. every Monday evening with bedtime stories and meditation short enough to keep the attention of younger listeners. Outside of live streams and on-demand programming, there's also the newly updated MindGem app, which you can download for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dharma talks in English on your cell phone, even when you are offline. So, this session we've looked at the topic of nipping anger in the bud. For my next session online with you, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning and a week on Thursday evening, we'll be moving on to look at the subject of procrastination and other defilements of implementation. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers that even better than posting thank you or great talk or sadhu in the broadcast comments, you can email your questions about meditation or what you've heard in the lecture to the email address that you can see spelled out in the slide, and I will do my best to answer these questions on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Also, try to overcome any anger which you experience in your life by practicing more forgiveness, and I hope this will help you sleep better and get all the benefits of non-anger in your life. So today, this is me, Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and stay safe.